Call the meeting to order.
Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
due to technical difficulties, you will not live tonight, but you are being taped.
We are on tape. Okay. So we can't cuss and swear anyway.
No.
Announcements. At the last Monday's work session, we elected a new chairman, yours truly, Charlie Berman. The select board will meet on the following dates: regular meeting 6 p.m., April 13 and April 27. Work review sessions prior to the regular meeting will start at 5 o'clock. We have voted to discontinue the work sessions in the first and third week. They'll be called as required by either the board or the town administrator. Weather observations for the month of February available in the town hall. We have approved the minutes of the February 23rd, March 2nd work session, February 23rd meeting, March 2nd work session, March 2nd work session, and March 15th work session. We have a motion on the 23rd of February.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of February 23rd, 09 Selectmen's meeting. Second.
There's a motion approved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. March 2nd work session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
March 15 work session.
16.
60.
March 16.
16.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes have been approved. The select board committee assignments for this year, the rest of the term, are as follows. Plymouth Village Water and Sewer Commission, Charlie Berman. I'll continue that. Town Parking Committee, Butch Cushing. Public Safety Building Committee, John Kelly and Charlie Berman. North Country Council, Darrell Brown and Valerie Scarborough. PB Cam, Darrell Brown. Planning Board, John Kelly. Alternate Planning Board, Butch Cushing. Public Highway Safety Committee, Charlie Berman. Chamber of Commerce, Valerie Scarborough. Main Street, Plymouth, I'll continue that, Charlie Berman. College Community Council, CCC, Valerie Scarborough. And we've added the Plymouth School Board, who I've spoken to Mark Halloran about, and he welcomes a selectman representative at their meetings, and Valerie Scarborough has been appointed to that position. Agenda review, has anyone got anything to, any changes, additions? plaque presentation we're not going to make tonight. Paul?
No, Mr. Switzer is sick.
He's ill. Mr. Switzer is ill. I have a visitor tonight. Martha Richards. How are you?
Cold.
Oh, it's warm out there. It's like Miami. Martha's going to talk to us about the county. What's happening in the county?
It's all messed up right now.
With your prison? Is that the...
Oh, I'm gonna fill you in on so many things tonight.
Oh, can't wait. Welcome.
Thank you. Oh, look at this. I'm just gonna get that organized. Hi, Val.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you. Daryl, good to see you.
Martha.
Chuck. I'm good. Wally. Hi, John. And Paul. Nice to see all of you. Please excuse my back. And I need glasses. Runs in the family. You're taking me early. And I certainly don't mind questions as we're going along from you or the audience. Okay. I have quite an outline. Are you on a tight schedule tonight?
No? 4 minutes into the meeting, we've got all kinds of time.
Oh, good, because this will be so riveting. I know you'll want to hear it all. First of all, thank you all for having me, fitting me in, but I guess you're done with your town meeting, so it's going to be dull the rest of the year, let's hope, huh?
I doubt it, but I'll try.
Okay. I got the letter from all of you that you had written at the end of December. Out of the 39 towns that we have in Grafton County, we heard from 16 towns, all on this same theme of the jail issue and watching our costs. So believe me, you are preaching to the choir in terms of keeping down our expenses. And we're right in the midst of our budget season right now, and we gave some caveats to all 17 departments as they put their budget together. If there are vacancies, let's see if we can do without filling them. Keep it level funded. No cost of livings allowed. We're going to look at steps and longevity, the whole 9 yards. And I think we've met with about 8 departments so far, and some are below 0, and some are anywhere between 1%, 2%, and 3%. And we haven't finished the process yet. And for those of you who may not know, the budgets do come to the Board of Commissioners, but the final approval is from the legislative delegation. And we have 26 members in the Grafton County delegation. And your local people are Mary Cooney and Suzanne Smith. So we can make recommendations to the delegation, but they can certainly slash and burn afterwards if they want to with this budget. So I appreciate your letter. It's always good to hear from the towns. I wish we'd heard from everybody, but frankly, you're all preaching to the choir because we're very aware of what is happening out in the county. Our revenues are down, just like all towns. We rely a lot on our registry of deeds, and unfortunately, with all of this falling like this, we are quite down, and you've heard that from the governor also as he's trying to work on his budget because of this change. Here it is in the registry. For example, the county total that goes to us, once all this money comes in, it's divided up into different groups, one to the state, to the county, and then the L-CHIP fund. So this February, we brought in $65,000 to the county, and to the state, we got $266,000. Last year at this same time, the county got $70,000, and the state got $391,000. So last year, things were changing as we worked on it then, but you can see there's been quite a change. In terms of foreclosures in the county, we have since January a year ago up to now, it's about 201 foreclosures, and we're watching that very carefully. I'm sure you know what's happening in Plymouth. At the moment, from January through to now, you have one foreclosure. And if I can find the other sheet from the calendar year, unless you know that amount offhand. I'll find it at the end of my talk, I'm sure. The highest foreclosures are over in the Lebanon area. And, let's see, did Plymouth do any sales? 32 mortgages and 14 deeds in Plymouth for this 3 month. And just today with the market going up, I think they were pleased with some home sales. And I've talked to some local contractors, one who's doing 2 new houses, so we can hope that things are on the uptick. I'll find that other mortgage information for you, or foreclosure. Here it is. Last year, January to December, Plymouth had 12 foreclosures.
We have one so far this year.
Yeah. Are there any other towns you're interested in? Okay.
What about Waterville Estates?
The estates aren't listed, just Waterville itself. Last year, they had 1.
How about Campton?
Campton in the calendar year last year, 20. Littleton, Lisbon, Alexandria, and you were the highest towns. So let's hope it slows down a little bit. Our number of employees at Grafton County up in Haverhill, we have over 400 employees, and probably about 40 to 50 of them are very part-time. They might work at the state fair, they might be on the sheriff's part-time deputies for certain events and whatnot. So we're looking at high 300s. The majority of our employees have been with us between 5 and 10 years. We have 100 retirees that we're taking care of, and we are looking at their contract. Even our executive director said that they have the Cadillac of health plans up there. There's no deductible and very small co-pays. And we're going to be looking at that very carefully this year. And maybe one of you can email me what Plymouth has for health care plan, because we are trying to look at our towns and see what we've got here. So that part does get very expensive, as you well know, with the insurances. In terms of taxes, last year, I'm sure you know, Plymouth sent in $591,000. And in terms of the tax percentage that you pay out of all of the Grafton County towns, you were the 3% of the whole tax bill is what you paid. Hanover and Lebanon are the highest. I'm in Holderness, we were at 6%. So that's where Plymouth stands, is 3.1%.
Of the total county.
Yep, that's your portion.
You said Holderness was
5th?
5th.
Yeah, we pay a lot to the high school from our town and have for years.
And 591 is the amount that went to the county? Not-
Yes, yeah. And the previous year, 2007, you had sent in $535,000. Again, it was $591,000, so you had an increase of 10.43% last year. And of course, I have no idea where we're at this year. I hope it's less, I just don't know. We've, as you know, got some pass-throughs from the state. I know that was one of your statements in the letter, Wally, that you had written, hoping that we don't just lay down and die when the state tells us that we have to pay more. We have sued the state. Several of the counties got together and did a very expensive lawsuit to the state, went to the Supreme Court, and they denied it. So we have tried doing some of this to refuse to pay these extra costs.
How does that react to, like Plymouth has the university that costs us a tremendous amount of money. And I know Holderness gives more to the county and so forth, but I would think there would be some collusion as far as what the university costs the town. In other words, we don't just give in.
You negotiated them.
We don't really, that's not a true figure as far as what Holderness pays in and what we pay in, because we have to have so many more services and everything like that because of the university. I think I don't think it's a true picture.
I don't know what the breakdown would be, but this goes up to the county, and it does pay for a number of things. One of the highest areas being towards the jail, the nursing home, and social services. This county puts out about $600,000 to all the social service agencies, because it is a big county, and we believe our philosophy in being as generous as we can to these agencies. We know that part is going to change a lot this year, and I'll get into the social service agencies in a minute. So that's where you stand with the tax issues and your position on that. The jail, I know that's a big interest to a lot of people. We're very proud of the jail, but it is a dangerous place to work in for the correctional officers, and it's a dangerous place for the inmates. I know a lot of people feel just throw them in there and throw away the key, but we do have a 40 to 50% recidivism rate, and 85 to 90% of those people come in with drug and alcohol and mental health issues. And that jail is no place for people with mental health problems. But as you know, New Hampshire has really fallen down on their care of the mentally ill. We used to be very well regarded around the country for our care of the mentally ill, but we've just, well, we're closing Laconia, we're closing all of these facilities, and the North Country has its issues. So Glenn Libby, who I think Daryl has met, have the others, any of you been up to the jail? I highly recommend a visit. He's our wonderful superintendent, and he just has a very caring philosophy that these people need the right attention, maybe get on the right meds, and when they return to their communities, they're a little more productive citizens than they have been in the past. So that does cost us money. But we heard from the letters, and we realized that we had to compromise on the design of the jail, and I personally feel very strongly about going ahead with the plans to construct this jail once our litigation is over. We did just get our second report from the one of the suits, and the judge did declare it in our favor, and this was the litigants wanting about $250,000 reimbursed to them in their court costs, and the judge denied this, fortunately, so we will be owing them $23,000 instead. But we know that they're going to appeal that case, so we still can't put a shovel in the ground yet. Anyway, back to the size. This project's been worked on for about 4 or 5 years. I came in about 2.5 years ago, put on the core committee to help plan this, and with the statistics done by people who plan jails and building out for the future, which is what we were told by the delegation to go out 20 or 25 years, we felt about a 206-bed facility was going to take care of us. With what we have done now to take out a lot of the parts of the jail, we're going to be down to about 162 beds, which when you look at the stats will take us out to 2015. That's not too far away. And we feel, well, maybe the next bunch of commissioners or the next group is going to have to face that. But the way the jail is being built, there is room to put on another housing pod in the future. So again, somebody else is going to have to face that. We just feel strongly we have got to build a jail and put services in there and the space to run some of these different programs. One of the areas that I felt very strongly in was a family therapy room. We have a lot of young families and have no idea about parenting, drug issues, making meth in their homes, a lot of domestic abuse. These people need some parenting help and some therapy. So we felt strongly to keep that room in there. Unfortunately, though, we did have to cut out the mental health area, which bothers me a lot. We'll still have an infirmary type area, but we will not have 6 beds and closed off rooms dedicated to that, nor the 3 padded rooms that we were going to have on intake. I think those will be moved to another area of the jail, because you can well imagine the condition that some of these inmates come in when they're on their drugs, alcohol, or just mental health issues. So sadly, we had to take that out. It is not required by the state, but again, this is what Glenn felt strongly about, is to give some help to these people. The current jail that was voted on up to $38 million last year for the 206 beds, with what we have cut out, I personally think it's probably going to be now under 100,000 square feet. We do not know the new cost yet, because these revised plans just went over to Portland, Maine about a month ago for them to begin sketching a new design. So I have no costs for you on this. And I was just down in Washington at the National Association of Counties meeting, And we met with our congressional delegates, and I sounded like a broken record to all of them about trying to get some help for this jail to build it, the bricks and mortar. You can get a lot of grant help for running programs in a jail, but it's very difficult to get that building assistance. And with the new stimulus plan, there is a section called Rural Communities Facilities, and it did say jails in there. So we have sent Senator Shaheen a special form that she sent us, and we're hoping, but believe me, we have asked and asked all over to try to get some help for this. Now, many people are saying, why are you continuing to push this idea of the jail with the economy so bad? Well, it is just because the economy is bad. First of all, we'll employ a lot of people for a couple of years. There'll be great jobs up there. Secondly, the bond rates are very good right now, as you know. And thirdly, we are finding some of the construction bids are lower than what we had worked on last time. These companies are hungry to get work, and they're putting down some of their bids. So this is a good time to build. Again, we cannot do anything, though, until the whole litigation issue is cleared up. But I would urge you to go up and visit this jail and meet with Glenn Libby, and I think that you'll be duly impressed with him. He shows great respect for the inmates and vice versa. It's clean, it's painted, but it is dangerous physically just because it's an old jail. There is a portion of it that's 113 years old, and that's where 65% of the inmates are locked up. There is a newer section from the late 1980s, but again, that's mostly administration and whatnot. And they get their meals over from the nursing home, and the laundry is done in the nursing home, and those are some difficult issues to deal with also. One of the programs we're especially proud of at the jail is the GED program, which they've had for years, but we have a new officer who came in there last year and has really put a lot of energy into this, and of course the state stopped paying for special ed programs in there, so we commissioners felt strongly about it to continue offering the GED. We just had our third GED graduation last week, and we've now graduated over 30 inmates from this program. Only 2 of them, and most of them have been released, and only 2 of them have come back, which is interesting to see because they've got a degree now, they can go get a job. And they are of different ages. We had a 53-year-old lady last fall who graduated and was so excited to have achieved this because she could now go on for her nursing degree. And one of the ones we graduated the other day wants to become an ordained minister and open up a soup kitchen and a place for victims of domestic violence. And he's kind of born again, but that's fine because he really is on the straight and narrow and just so pleased. And for many of them, this is a great jump in self-esteem for them. So we're very proud of this program. And we have an in-house person who does the teaching, and then one of the sisters from the monastery up in Littleton comes over and does the testing. So there's a great deal of support from the families and from the communities and mentors coming in to work with them. And the graduation is complete with a cap and gown, the piped-in music of pomp and circumstance, a big cake and punch. It's a ceremony that they never had before, so it's a very special time, and they get a real diploma, too. So it's very nice. We're very proud of that. To keep an inmate in jail is $30,000 a year, and we are developing and have had for quite a while alternate programs to sentencing with the electronic bracelet, the work release programs where we have a correctional officer with them and they'll go out into communities and they'll hold a job. So those that are deemed safe to go back out into the communities, we are really pushing that so that we don't have them in jail. And we are anticipating that those programs will grow a lot because a lot more is learned about incarceration, and we have a great group of correctional officers who follow these people around to their jobs. So we are trying to cut down that. And another one that we do is the drug court. We're only the 2nd county in New Hampshire that has the drug court. And it's been going now almost 2 years. We have 14 members of that, and these are for the habitual offenders who are still safe to be not incarcerated. It's an 18-month, very rigorous program with unannounced frequent urine testing, a lot of therapy. They have to hold a job, and they know that if they do anything wrong with us, obviously take their drugs again or commit a crime, they will go right to prison. But the wonderful thing at the end of this program, and we now have 2 full graduates, their record is totally expunged of this felony. It will never show up again. So for these people, that really is quite a carrot that they have out there. So the two that have graduated come back often to the classes and act as ambassadors for what it has done for them, and they're pretty impressive what they went through, and I'm so grateful that to even still be alive because of what they did to their bodies with drugs and alcohol. And we're very fortunate, the director of this program, and I think Marcia's pretty familiar with us too, the director of this program is from New Jersey and was well regarded down there. He is a lawyer and he travels nationally, so he supposedly retired down to Grantham, but he is running our program and we're very fortunate. And this Wednesday, right, Marcia?
Yes,
We're having a program at, what,
at
6?
6 o'clock at the whole village, and anyone's welcome to attend. Glenn Libby will be there.
And Bob Gasser, our director, will be there. And we've started a 501c3 for the drug court because some of these kids don't even have money to get a driver's license or maybe get appropriate clothes for their job and whatnot. So we're hoping that we can build up that account to really help these young people. So we're very proud of that accomplishment also. The farm, the infamous farm. As you may know, the farm in the counties were developed in the 1800s as the poorhouse where people could come work off their debts, or I suppose too if they were homeless. So we have some beautiful farm buildings up there, which in the past couple of years we have refurbished with new roofs, new electrical system, new fire alarms, because as you may remember, for those of you who've been around for a bit, we had quite a big fire up there 4 years ago and lost a building. We were lucky it didn't go over to the nursing home or to the jail. And we have just rebuilt a maintenance shed to now keep that equipment in there. And my first election as commissioner, I still do have mixed feelings about this farm, but my colleagues Ray Burton and Mike Cryans are really quite tied to the farm. And I don't know if the farm keeps the inmates going or the inmates keeps the farm going. And there's only 3 county farms left in the state, Coos County, ours, and Cheshire County. And the revenues are dropping there. The price of milk has gone down terribly since last summer. We now get about $11 per 100 pounds. Our farm can still keep going because we support it as a county, but we have a lot of dairy farmers up in that Connecticut River area, and I just don't know how they're going to manage. I think some are going to have to fold. It's a really tough time for them. We milk about 80 cows, but we probably have about 150 in all. We may reduce the number of milkers, and our milk is sold to Agrimark, which makes your Cabot cheese, so at least we get it back in that regard because we do not consume any of the milk that is produced on our farm. Hatchland Dairy is just right down over the hill, but federal rules prohibit us from selling it to them. It's just another one of those strange bureaucratic rules, unfortunately. Again, I would urge you to come up and see the farm. We have over 700 acres, and about 400 of it is on the Connecticut Riverside. It is a beautiful region right along the Connecticut there with the cornfields. We grow 10 tons of potatoes, and tons of them are given away in the fall to soup kitchens and churches. Anybody of these agencies can request these 50-pound bags of potatoes. We bring them here to the senior center, and squashes, and it is given free. So that's something else we're very proud of doing. And the inmates go out with their correctional officer and deliver them to these towns who have requested them. So I hope that we can grow more potatoes this year because I think we'll probably be needing them. We do have an extensive farm stand with vegetables and with some flowers, and it opens up in about mid-July. And last year we brought in $40,000 to this farm stand. So it's very popular, and there's many other farm stands up in there, and we keep our prices equal to the others. There was a bit of a furor 3 years ago with a local farmer, but we do not undersell anybody. The employees at Grafton County do get a 25% discount, but they're the only ones who do that, and I did once mention about taking that away from them, and was not well received, so I was trying to get a little more money for the farm stand, but it's a pretty impressive little farm stand that the inmates built for us. Once I'm done with this Alternative Energy Commission, and I think you've read about what's happening there, and I'll bring you up to date in a few minutes, I would like to start a farm commission and really investigate thoroughly what more can be done at this farm. I think we can bring in some other revenues. We could be creative, maybe in what we plant. Do we get into agritourism, say with a corn maze in the fall? Do we start raising chickens? I suggested buffalo, but nobody took me up on that. Do we do seed trials and get paid for it? Do we bring in some 4-H clubs right to there? Again, with the issue of inmates, that may be an uncomfortable thing with people, but I just feel more can be done with this. Maybe get into a niche market of making cheese, like some of the other farms do up through there. And we have facilities right here at PSU with a Small Business Institute with Thad Gulbranson, who runs the Center for Rural Partnerships, and he did come up and speak to us last year and did some oversight and some ideas with that. You've got the UNH Aggie students, and they just came up last week, and we're waiting for their report. So this is the commission that I would like to put together with a diverse cross-section of people from throughout the county and see what more we can do with this county farm. The county farm's budget is about $500,000. So when you think we've lost $30,000 in revenue so far this year, that is still a lot of money, but out of the whole picture, it could be worse. And there's a great affinity for this farm with the people who live up there and pass by it every day. We live down here and don't see these beautiful farm buildings or the land or the cows, but people up there just kind of look at it as the icon of the county. And I'd like to see what more we can do before I say, yes, let's get rid of the farm, or no, let's keep it going. So that's where I'm at with the county farm. Social services. Again, we're very generous to the many, many different organizations in the county that request help to the best of our abilities. And we no longer take care of juvenile issues. That went to the state. We are now responsible for the aging population, which of course is ongoing and less healthy than the juveniles. So for example, from last July to the end of February, the county paid $280,000, almost $281,000 for 16 Plymouth residents, which is a combination of those in a nursing home or those receiving in-home care. Now, it is still your taxpayer dollars that go towards it, but it's put in the whole pot from throughout the county. So that is one way of everybody's tax payments going to help out people. And you had 19 people receiving in-home care that are not having to go to a nursing home. So that would be through the VNA and the Grafton Senior Citizens Council and whatnot.
And that's part of our 591.
Yep,
Okay.
it's all part of that picture.
More than half, almost half.
Yep. Well, again, excuse me, it isn't, Daryl. It's the whole county's money put together. That's not your, it's part of your share. I wouldn't know what part goes towards that, excuse
Got it.
me.
Got it.
So it's the whole
281
county,
is
yes.
everybody.
So what you sent in, the 590 or something, part of that goes into these social services.
And 281 was your total outlay.
I think, yes, 281, yep.
Okay.
And again, that's, so 16 are in a nursing home and 19 are at home. And you do not have to be a resident of Grafton County to be at the nursing home. If a family member from out of state wanted to come up here, you can do that. And they can also be in other nursing homes. Our residents can be in other counties and they still would get covered through that. So that's other social services that you get. I'm sure you're very familiar with this. What's this one instead? Obviously, senior citizens, and I know that Plymouth, you budget to donate to some of these organizations too, like the Senior Center House. And I think you probably give to the Bridge House. The ADAPT program, the Bridge House, Child Advocacy Center, Katie, the Circle program, Center for Adolescent Health up here with Dr. Kunis in Hedberg, Family Connection Center, the PEMI Youth Center, I don't know what ACHS is, I'm sorry, and a family planning program, the Grafton County Senior Citizen Center with transportation, social services, and adult care, the RSVP program, Genesis Behavioral Health, Headrest Hotline, which is a suicide and outpatient counseling center in Lebanon. Your citizens here are eligible for that. The newfound area nursing, the NANA program down there, and family support. North Country YMCA with youth scholarships. Northern Human Services with adult outpatient services. Pemmy Baker Home Health, Pemmy Youth Center. Voices Against Violence. So you obviously participate and your citizens can take advantage of this. And again, this is an amalgamation of all county taxes plus what you donate yourselves. So your continuing donations are very important to keeping these going. And that's what I'm very concerned about this year with the drop in incomes and revenues, that these services to our most vulnerable will be cut. So we're going to have to look at that very carefully. We also have incentive funds that comes from the state. That's probably being cut by about 50%. We'll only have about $140,000 now to deal with this, and these are agencies, many of them the same ones, who put in applications for grant monies. So I'm very concerned what's going to happen with those and people falling through the cracks. The nursing home. Today, we have Medicare at 20% reimbursements, Medicaid is 58%, and private pay 22%. And you can be a private pay patient to be in the nursing home. It is not all just so-called charity. And we're a very reputable nursing home. We won a very prestigious Quality of Life Award about a year and a half ago, and we were the only county nursing home to have won that. It's a very clean, nice, airy, well-run facility. We have a director of the facility who's just a bug about following all the federal regulations, which you cannot imagine how many there are. This is an issue I have run into just trying to get fresh vegetables from our own farm into the nursing home, in terms of peeling them and washing them and who's going to cook them and whatnot. You cannot believe what I have to go through. But I'm very tenacious, as you know, and I have not given up on the idea of fresh vegetables getting served in the nursing home, which does happen once in a while. So I'd say 50% of our employees at the county do work in the nursing home. And we have a pretty dedicated group up there. We have a good ratio of registered nurses to LPNs to LNAs. As I say, I think they're a dedicated group. They provide a lot of different activities. Like one day there's a men's luncheon program, and they take bus trips out around the region for people. We have 2 Alzheimer units up there. People do not just go to the nursing home to die. Many go up there after they've had extensive surgeries and need rehabilitation and then go home. But I would urge you also to visit the nursing home. It's a pretty impressive place. I'm a former nurse myself, so it's been fun to have firsthand experience seeing this. Great meals are prepared. They have dining rooms and people can eat in their rooms. They can bring a few personal belongings and whatnot. So I think we're very fortunate with the county nursing home. And stay tuned with how the state is shifting costs to the nursing home.
How many residents?
Oh, I'm sorry, we have 135 residents and we keep it filled 99% of the time and usually have a waiting list because it is so highly regarded as a nursing home. They have a great reputation up there. I'd say it's quite progressive. The nurses use PDAs when they make their rounds, trying to go paperless up there. We're doing very well with getting all the records shifted over to the electronic records, so we really keep up with things up there. The building was built in 2003. The building I am in was the original nursing home. So this is the whole new one out on the front that faces the highway. It's this area here. Here's the highway. Well, you've got to come up and see this place. So you cannot see the lovely barns in back, and that's why a lot of people don't know we have a county farm, fortunately. Any questions about the nursing home?
You have 50% of your employees are in the nursing home.
About, yeah.
How many are in the prison?
Good question. I'd say probably balance, about a good 30%, because then we have only 5 over in the farm, and we have some over in the courthouse, and then the administration building, so probably it's a good 30%. And I'm glad you brought that up, because with downsizing the jail, and that was mentioned in your letter too, The operational costs, of course, will be reduced because we're reducing the size of the jail. So again, I cannot tell you reduced by how much because I don't know these final figures that we're looking at, but we will not need as much personnel.
What sort of sentences, where does the county drop out
When you're,
year and a half?
Yes, a year. When you're sentenced to a year or less, you go to the county jail. But we do have 3 murderers, alleged murderers, I should say,
Yeah.
up there right now, and depends on when they go to trial. So you have this mix of people in with the rest of the population, and we do not have good segregation facilities. We've had 4 cases of MRSA this year, which is that very severe bacterial infection, and there was no way to separate these people from the other inmates. And again, you've got correctional officers working there with their own families that they go home to at night after being exposed to this. And we also had a scare with tuberculosis a while ago. Again, no opportunity to segregate these patients. So with the new facility, we can do some of this and make it safer for everybody. But we do have to remember those correctional officers.
Do you know how much the farm loses every year?
At the moment, I said we're at about $30,000 in loss in revenue. And
Not in total bottom figure, how much is it lose?
I think last year was about $48,000 we lost. Increasing, thank you for bringing that up. The increasing cost this year that the farm is having to deal with is sawdust costs and grain costs, and I think you've heard that nationally. You know, wood chips is a pretty big industry up there in the North Country. You just don't see piles of sawdust anymore, and we like to keep that barn as clean as possible. Plus, with the inmates there, it has to be safe so they don't slip on manure and other things. So we do use a fair amount of sawdust, and it's getting harder to find. Plus, grain is so expensive, so that's where some of our costs are going up. And he thinks with a smaller herd, obviously, the costs would go down, but you'll still have the bedding costs. The Alternative Energy Committee, it's a long story, I'll try to make it short, but last year I applied for a grant to the USDA to study biomass up there, and a lot of this was an outgrowth from the jail. Carol Friedrich, one of our representatives from Wentworth, was very upset that we did not think more green about this jail. And I felt, well, rather than just doing something green at the jail, let's look at the whole county complex. So again, I called together volunteers from around the county who wanted to serve on an alternative energy committee. And I got 10 wonderful people who were willing to come up to the county twice a week to meet with me to discuss many different kinds of alternative energy. We had experts come and speak to us about solar and wind, geothermal, and of course biomass. And we had this grant, a matching grant through the USDA, and the county itself put in $4,000. And the firm we chose, called Burke Biomass Energy Resource Center out of Montpelier, Vermont, did the feasibility assessment for us. And this is the report that they came out with. And I also have the PowerPoint that they did. And I wanted to tell you this is all on our website, which is www.graftoncountynh.us. And this whole report is there, and it's pretty extensive with charts and whatnot. And if we do not build the jail and just have this biomass and a central place where the boilers would be, and then it would be piped underground to the biomass facility will be over in here, and then the piping will go out to the various buildings. Our first year alone in savings from fuel would be over $250,000, and the payback on this would be 5 to 7 years. If we do this with the jail, it would be over $500,000 in savings using the biomass. And this is at about $51 a ton for wood chips. And we've spoken with Bob Birdie, who maybe you know, who runs North Country Procurement out of Rumney. So he's become kind of an advisor to us. So I'm very excited at this, and as we sit here and wait, this week I may be hearing, because through the UNH Cooperative Extension in Durham, they submitted our biomass plan to USDA in Washington. It's not part of the stimulus money, but they still have money to do biomass around the country. And our project is the only one from New Hampshire that was submitted, and we've put in for $4.8 million. for this. So you may hear some very exciting news that the county was awarded this grant. So stay tuned and keep your fingers crossed that this will happen. So,
I have a slight problem with that in a way because, you know, it almost seems hypocritical because everybody says we gotta have more green, we gotta have more forestry, but now we go into a bio plant and Berlin is gonna have one and there's so many around here. Pretty soon, we're gonna look like we did in the 1890s. You know, we're gonna have just 20% forestry and 80% of non-forestry acres in New Hampshire. I don't, you know, everybody thinks alternative energy and everything like that, but there again, you know, that wood has to come from somewhere. And I just wonder when, you know, it's like retirement. When you first start retirement back in the 1930s, it was fine. Now everybody's retired and everybody's broke. Same thing as with the wood. A few fire plants might be okay, but when you start to really get more and more and more of them, you're going to need the wood to fire them up, and somewhere along the way you're going to start losing some forest.
well, I'm glad you brought that up because that was one of my questions to them. We had, between the Burke people speaking to us about the sustainability issue, we also had the head of the New Hampshire Timberland Association come and talk to us. And they were very reassuring because it is sustainable and it is renewable. As you know, we can plant new forests on that. And we'd be using about 5,000 tons a year, which is not very much at all. And it'd only be about 4 or 5 truckloads a week coming into our facility. And of course, we wouldn't need that much in the summer. That would then be mainly for hot water. But I was concerned about that, John, and I've been reassured by them. And there is a section on this report, so when you go to the web, you could look up the sustainability on this. Because, yeah, biomass is getting so popular with people, but they reassured us, plus being in the North Country where there is so much wood, and we have it right on our own wood lot, and we do replant up there. So I feel much better about that, having had these experts come and talk.
Have you ever thought of changing that farm into a forestry project?
That's
So-
what I'm hoping with the commission, we'll figure out what to do.
So that they could, you know, it's a known fact that any farmer can tell you around here, you have to fight all the time to keep your open fields.
Mhm.
So the actual land and the weather and everything else is more prone to the forestry part of it than it is to the cattle, as far as most of New Hampshire is concerned.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of
I've never
woodland.
thought of that before.
No, but that might be something that comes out of this farm commission. We'll have to see. But again, I do feel better about the use of our woodlands up there. Obviously, it will employ a few people, not as many as I thought, but it will keep some loggers busy over time. I think a bank would be more likely to loan to these logging companies so they can get some decent equipment, knowing they have a long-term contract with the county and a big plant like this. And also it will create a few jobs as we build the actual facility itself of this building. And with what Burke has suggested, we will probably make this bunker building large enough to hold a couple of boilers so that even if the jail isn't online yet, we'll have space to put in this wood-burning boiler. And the other part of the alternative energy that we're seriously studying is the possibility of geothermal at the jail, which you can do with the new facility. And I do not understand geothermal, but one of the people on my committee just happened to be a Dr. Gary Pettiplace, who was a former employee over at CREL, the Cold Regions Lab over in Hanover. And he has traveled extensively around the world. He has written extensively. He's a Stanford graduate and the whole 9 yards of credentials, and knows this topic very well. And he is working with us on this geothermal concept for the jail. So stay tuned on that one as it develops. And from what he said, we would not have to use 1 drop of oil at the jail if we went with geothermal, because it also does the cooling. And the price is about the same as what we're currently doing, or even with the wood coming in. So it could be very exciting, and I'd like to think that Grafton County could be the flagship county of going green. Merrimack County Nursing Home, though, does have geothermal also, and I think the Cheshire Jail is looking into geothermal down there. So this is the right time to do this kind of program there and save money. Our current oil bill that we are in the midst right now, because of course it was bid last year when the prices were going up, is $600,000 that we're in the midst of right now, and that cannot continue. And it's gone down, as we know, but I don't think it's gonna stay down. And those prices just are not sustainable. So that's where a lot of your tax money goes to, is paying for that. When you've got a nursing home and a jail that run 24/7, these are the expenses that you're looking at. And I don't wanna see that continue. So I'm almost done here, but the last bit, and you may have seen this in your office, the National Association of Counties recently started a prescription drug program, and I brought these cards last time. Anybody can use these prescription cards as long as you don't already have a drug plan. Family members, they're good for your pets. I use them for my dog. There is no membership fee, there's no expiration fee, all the pharmacies honor them. I've taken batches of these up to Hannaford and to Oliver and to Rite Aid, and they'll call up the county to ask for some more, so you just tear off this little card here, anybody can have one. And here's a poster, so I would ask you to ask your people downstairs if they would hang this up, and they can have this stack of cards. Grafton County took on this program September of '06, and since that time, we have saved our citizens over $250,000 in prescription costs. You save an average of at least 20% on your prescription when you use this. So any bit certainly helps. So when somebody says, well, what does the county do for me? This is a free plan that anybody can make use of. So I urge you to spread that around.
Nothing is free.
Well, that was to us. So that's the end of my report. I'll give you again our website. It's www.graftoncountynh.us. All of these alternative energy programs are on there. We also did an energy audit of the whole complex. We thought before we even get into changing anything, let's see where we're at. And we are doing some good things up there, and they also gave us a list of about 13 things that we could consider looking at to even save more energy. So we're going to start whittling away at those. So feel so good about having this energy audit done on all of these buildings. And the geothermal report has just come out online now, so they're all right there. Also, the minutes of the commissioners' meetings are always online. And we meet every Tuesday at 9 o'clock up there, and we welcome the public to attend. And right now, we're in the midst of budget with the departments, and those meetings are open to the public. And I don't mind getting calls at home and emails or whatever, and I do have my card, I guess, over there, and I'll give you each one of those. So are there any other questions that I could answer
How
for
many
you?
beds is the revised plan for the prison?
Oh, 162.
160.
We went down to.
What do you anticipate your increase in operating costs going to be with the new prison?
Well, it will be less. I think we had slated somewhere between 80 and 90 personnel. We now have about 40.
So you're going to double the number of employees.
It will be between 50 and 90 with the new facility, because it's going to be smaller. And as I say, we started at 108,000 square feet, and I was amazed at all that Glenn whacked off. That's what makes me think we will be under 100,000 square feet. But again, still with space to add on another housing pod if need be. We're going to still make the essential services like the kitchen and whatnot to fit or to be able to serve over 200. So when and if the time comes that it expands, you won't have to expand a kitchen, because that's in the inside of the whole facility. That would be very hard to expand something like that. And inmates will be doing their own laundry. These pods that they live in, the housing pods, are what you see in the movies. One correctional officer's in there, and they have the mezzanine area above and then the open area below still with beds and the round tables and whatnot. And they're segregated, or they're classified according to what their behavior level is, what their crime is and whatnot. And obviously, there would be maximum segregation for the really bad ones.
It's designed for the fewest number of staff to manage the largest number of
Exactly,
people.
that's the whole new concept
Yeah, yeah.
in corrections. You know, that one officer should be able to, but it's running 24/7. So each pod would have to have planned probably 5 employees. You've got 3 around the clock, and then when they're off on their days, you've got the others, to fit into that schedule.
But you say maximum security, now you have
The
1
really naughty
year,
ones.
1 year is the sentence limit, so where do the maximum
But some of them do
security-
stay longer than that if they're still awaiting trial. The wheels of justice move very slowly, as you know, so they could end up staying longer if they're still awaiting a trial.
So this is sort of a holding facility for people going on trial. for-
Yes, yep. And passing bad checks, the drug issues and whatnot, domestic violence, a lot of those are under a year, so we have quite a mix of people in there.
I have a real problem with this funnel effect, that they're, just like retirement and just like Social Security, the social part of it, and, the jail and the nursing home and the farm and this, keeps growing and growing and growing, and you're getting a smaller population paying for all of this. It's just a known fact that we're getting older. We don't, everybody's talking about Social Security not being able to go on because of the population is getting older and they're not. So all of these social things that people will, well-meant but well-heeled, think of all these things and think about how wonderful it is to give all these services, but it's the people in the cat and the trailer park and other people that have to pay for that, and somebody making $300,000 a year, and they've got to pay out $10,000, doesn't make too much difference. But the person is making $12,000 a year, and they got to pay out $1,500. It means a lot more. So the more social aspects that we get in this country, and as I said, nothing is free. So, you might want all of your wonderful things for your jail, and I know it probably enhances people to be honest and upright. But it costs so much money, more money to have these new concepts, and it's not the people that are thinking of all these things or even working up there that I know they pay some, but it's the people that are working at Walmart and people who are working at places like that have to pay for all these wonderful things that a lot of people think about. It bothers me, and Social Security is running that way and everything, and somewhere along the way, something's going to have to give, I would think.
Well, there's always inequities in these social programs, and we just don't believe in warehousing the inmates up there. If we can make, there's such a waste of mankind and womankind up in there. If we can make these productive people and help them out a little bit, that's our philosophy on this.
You don't have to get philosophical about it. Glenn Libby, I was up there, and the 40 to 50% recidivism rate, he said that's only intra-county, so from what they know of people in the county jail who return to that county jail, it doesn't show. He said it was more like 80% when you look at, they go from this county to Belknap County Jail to that county jail. So warehousing or not, they're there learning one thing or the other. They're getting worse as criminals, or they're getting turned into citizens.
But you take it, and it's like a sponge. Certain people say, well, the state should take care of all of it, and other people say the town should take care of all of it. And I think you know what I mean by the politics that have that philosophy. Some people have say the town should take care of it, other people the state. And it just seems like the Grafton County is the biggest state, and the way the laws have changed now, anybody can go anywhere. And so we get dumped into a lot of people that aren't really in the Grafton County, but the people in Grafton County have to pay for it.
Well, we try not to take out of county ones, or we do get paid for it. We take a lot of women from Coos County, as they don't have a proper facility, and they are billed for the inmates coming down to see us. Another issue is the legislators. People tell them, we don't want these people on the streets, put them away. So they make these laws to incarcerate them, and we have to take these people. So this is something that maybe needs a discussion with the legislators, is let's look at what some of these crimes are that people are put in jail for, and maybe that could reduce some of these people coming into our jails.
Martha, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for your hard work. I mean,
Well,
it's a lot of
obviously,
effort that's
I'm
gone into
enjoying it
this.
a lot, and thank
There's
you.
no question that you're working very hard at it, and I also appreciate the way that you're attacking the budget level, trying to get things level funded. And
I don't want my taxes going up much either,
I
so.
really appreciate that. And I think you do have a feeling of where we're coming from with this, and just like to thank you.
Well, thank you. No, I was glad to be reelected to go up there. I'm really enjoying it. I keep telling the woman's perspective is different on things, so. But thank you all. I'll get you my card, and then I know I've taken up a lot of your time to get down here.
Thank you for
Business.
coming, and we appreciate the update.
Well, anytime, I'm always available to give updates, and I hope that I'll be able to get you some news about this grant.
Take a trip to the jail as
Well,
a
please
visitor.
do.
You've been there.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting place.
But you know, the thing that's gonna get me is, you know, like that, and I thought they
Sign.
built it
It
themselves.
didn't take long.
And
All right,
it's a
take care.
beautiful, beautiful place.
More people get cards?
Anybody can have a card.
Most people would have money, they wouldn't need it. You made that change, they got dropped off.
Where's this? All right. So, you want to review this now?
Yes, Mr. Ahern's here and Mr. and Mrs. Hills are also here, so you can.
So because we have the Phillips and the Aherns, we'll review the discussion we had earlier with Ryan about the division on Route 3. Mr. Ahern, would you like to, where are the Phillips? Right here?
The Hills are here.
Oh, there they are, okay. Come on up. We had a discussion about this before the meeting, and the problem is that we can't do anything without a town meeting on this road, which the proposal is that we abandon it, which would make the property line revert to the center, which will give you enough of your front porch, and you would still have enough room to move in and out. I guess you use this road now, don't you?
Yes, yeah, I have to,
Yeah.
when I'm taking my equipment out, it's a problem getting out and in front of my barn, because the traffic is so heavy on Route 3 now. And so it's...
You own this lot, the 31 and 33, the 102 acres?
Yeah, no, 33 is mine, 31 is
Right.
theirs.
Oh, I see, that 31 is the Phillips. Okay. Now, The other thing that was brought up is you use half of the, you use half of this, the half toward their house to come in and out.
I'm not sure.
It's a 66 feet, the 66-foot
It's a
wide
4-yard
road.
road. I mean,
Yeah.
it's,
There's a tree line or something down the middle?
well, there's trees that were in there that were put in and,
100 years ago, and now they're big.
well, no, they're not 100 years ago. They were put in back in the 80s. But it was town property, so there's nothing I could do about it at the time.
Well, what we'd like to do, the problem we have is we just can't do what you want right now, because it has to be a town meeting issue. Either to abandon or for us to deed half of the road.
There is a problem with abandoning that road, is that with the corner there, it will take away any right that I might have of putting another house lot or anything up there, or several house lots up there. It'll completely eliminate any development rights I have for my 100 acres, because there is no place else to put access to the highway. When it was as I said in my letter in the past, it was assumed that it belonged to the state. And there were state people up there, and when my father was dealing with them at the time, but I was there at the meeting, and I asked him, well, is there anywhere else on here that I could put access to the road if I wanted to develop my property up here? And they said no, because there isn't enough sight distance back past my barn, and it's too close to Route 3. There's no place in there for me to have any kind of access road if I wanted to put, any development or anything. It's not in my plan right now, but it is something that I do now have a right on that road. And I was worried that this was going to come up, and so I took every effort to notify the real estate people when that place was for sale. I spoke to them after they bought the place and told them about the road, because I needed to be able to use the road. And if they weren't informed of that, then they had recourse. I didn't buy the place because it was priced too high based on what was there. In my opinion, I couldn't justify doing it because I knew that the road was there.
But if the town, what if the town deeded the half acre, number 32, that would give you access to Route 3.
But I would never get approval to put a major access road there. It's too close to the intersection of Route 3 and River Road. I mean,
You would have 33 feet coming down here.
I understand that, but that wouldn't be enough if all of a sudden I needed to subdivide my property up there, I'm gonna need an access road, and 33 feet isn't wide enough. I mean,
How wide is a normal
Coming
road?
in this way.
4 rods. A normal road. Most roads, when they're set up, I'm sorry.
You could come around this way.
But what I'm saying is it's too close to this intersection here. I would never get approval for it.
If we deeded the 32, parcel number 32 to you, you say you couldn't get access to River Road? What are you trying to get access to, River Road or Route 3?
Either one. Either one. That's what I'm saying is, I would not be able to put access into Route 3 because I'd be too close to River Road entrance and not enough sight distance around my barn.
You know, 260 feet.
Well, I'm just going by what the state people told me when I talked to
Mr.
them.
Chairman, I'd have to say at this time, we need to check with the OTSOs
Yeah.
and see what their requirement now would be.
And, well, just another thing is that it would also be a significant expense to put in a road in there where I've already got a roadbed established on the old Route 3. I mean, it's just something that I would hope would be considered there also.
But, I mean, the simplest thing for the town would be, aside from deeding the half acre, would be just to take that 66-foot wide right-of-way and abandon it. Which means the lot lines, once you have 32, the lot line would then revert to the center. Probably down to, I don't know, let's see, the line sort of runs. So you'd have easy access to the river road.
I think what we should do is to have Mr. Ahern go back to the state and find out if we can get either a denial or an agreement for that, for an access road to a back lot. And if they deny him, then we've got a situation, but if they allow it, and then as far as the river road is concerned, if he's gonna have a ton of houses up and back there, I'm sure the neighbors would probably might have a problem with that.
That'd be a whole different issue. I mean, we're not gonna deal with that. We're just trying to figure out how we can help these folks out.
But the thing is that once you open that road up, then you're gonna have that possibility.
But I mean, once you opened up what, that 66-foot wide piece?
Yeah. Or 33, or whatever you want to call it.
But if we deeded lot 32, you would end up with 468 feet of frontage on Route 3, plus you'd get another 33 feet. It'd be a significant, the state wouldn't allow you to go through there?
What I'm saying is if what I asked them when they were there, and it was the people that deal with this sort of thing, and I said, just look at it, and folks can come down and look at it. That would be my suggestion, and if you want to try and pull a truck out on that road on a afternoon, especially a weekend afternoon during the summer, I'd be glad to set one up for you. But the sight distance back around my barn is very minimal until you get real close to River Road. And they come around there, you know, anybody that knows the road, they start accelerating up north of my barn. And they come around there at 50, 60 miles an hour. I've had school buses go by my place, and I know they're going at least 50, 55. And so when you look at the sight distance back, where you would have to go to have access to Route 3 is going to put you real close to River Road, and anybody that's done any kind of development knows they're not going to allow you to have two accesses that close together, because it's a hazard. And so...
You mean access meaning a driveway?
No,
Well, I mean, if I, say I wanted to put, it's just, and as I say, it's not my
Put a
plan,
road in.
just say if I wanted to put a development in, I've got 102 acres up there, say I wanted to put a development in there with a few houses, it's gonna be a driveway, it's gonna be used, and they're not gonna allow a driveway that close to River Road,
It wouldn't
in
be a
the
driveway, it'd be
intersection.
another access road.
Well, I mean, an
to
access
the
road, yeah, that's what I mean, is an
I
access
think
road.
that-
And so I just would hate to lose that value in my property because you're abandoning this road that has been there and that I've planned on and that I've used and everything else. I would hate to see, you know, the loss of that.
Mr. Chairman, shouldn't we have an engineer go down and take a town engineer, go down
Yeah,
and
have a
take a look
town
at it
engineer
before
too.
we're just, you know, we're five people.
I would say the town engineer should get down, because the other thing is the house that you people own is right on the line. Now,
Which is not what we were told when we purchased the place.
But that's why.
You have a-
But we didn't know.
But
That was too late at that point. I understand you took the necessary.
it wasn't too late. You could have gone back and done something with the real estate agent.
Did, but they wouldn't do it.
Well, I mean, you could have gone back, they lied to you.
They told
There's
us that
law.
you hadn't been using that road for quite some time, and there was no indication on our property that there was any driving across the property for, can I speak, please? I've given you plenty of
Okay,
time.
I'm sorry.
As we bought the property, and if you go to our house and you look at our piece, and when our driveway is paved, the previous owner had gotten a land use permit, I think in the early 2000s, to have that paved. I believe I'm correct on that, and Brian was gonna check on that. And when we bought the place and they told us that we owned up to the tree line, we believed it. I mean, it looks very much like a lot that's ours, and there was no indication even on the grass at that point, because we bought in September. There was no indication on the grass that anyone had been driving across that property at any time. You know, you can tell if there's regular traffic, it looks like a road. Now, it looks like a road. It has been plowed through and driven across ever since we purchased the house. And prior to us purchasing the house, the previous owner, or actually she was the executrix of the estate, told us that he had not been driving across the property, and it wasn't going to be an issue. I understand it is an issue now, but we were told something, and we were believing that we could, you know, everyone was in agreement that this was true, so we didn't have any reason. I had just had a C-section, and I wasn't able to go to the town, and then after we purchased the house, we went to the town and saw plain as day that this was still a abandoned, well, not abandoned, but a Class 6 unmaintained road. And so I just like, oh my goodness, this is so not what we had bargained for. So at that point, from the moment we closed on the house, Mr. Ahern did come over and talk to my husband and say, this is the deal. This is the deal. I handed this survey to the real estate agent and said, just as he mentioned, and I said that this is the case, and please tell the future owners or any prospective buyers that this is the case, and I will be driving through. This is what he's stating that he said to the agents. They never told us this. They said we owned to the tree line, and that there had been an issue with Mr. Ahern in the past, that he wanted to drive through the property, but that was not going to be something that was going to be done. So we believed. I mean, unfortunately, we learned a lesson that we shouldn't just believe what we're told, but we thought that we could. And because when we bought the house, there was no indication of a road there, none. And now when you go to our house, it looks like a road, because over the past 6 months since we have owned the house, we now have had our neighbors going through all the time. And now we have, at this point, we have no hope of having that be our driveway anymore. If you look at where the house is and where our real, according to this, our boundary line runs almost through the front of our house. So we don't even really technically have rights to our front yard or whatever. So we have many times seen people driving through really for no reason, going right from his home right through to
Just to
River
turn around
Road,
and
just to
come
turn
back.
around and come back. And that's neither here nor there, but we weren't aware of it. So we're just coming saying, we're not trying to be jerks here, we want to do it amicably, but we just don't think we think that there's some way, hopefully with this piece, this lot 32, and with the fact that there is a 66-foot, you know, little piece here that maybe could be abandoned, that hopefully everyone could go away from this happy. He could have access to the road like he would like, and we could have our front lawn and be able to put a porch on and be able to have a safe driveway for our children.
Well, I think what we will do is, because you're looking at, I can't believe you couldn't put a road to a development in that. You probably got 130 to 150 feet. And I just don't understand why the state would not allow. I have no idea why it suddenly has become a road that's in use, you know, on a regular basis.
It's been used on a regular basis. There was a period of time back in the 80s when there wasn't as much traffic on Route 3 as there is now, because you know there's been a lot more developments down there. The Scalzos who used to live there had kids. I tried to be accommodating. Well, most of the time I would go out my driveway. A lot of times I'd have to call my kids out of the house to come stand on the other side of the road so that I could drive out, because I worried about traffic coming around the corner. I spent a considerable amount of money to have this survey done, to get the road drawn in so that people would be aware of where it was. I gave the real estate agent a copy of this survey that showed that the roadway came right up to the house. I made the effort of telling the real estate agent, I made the effort of telling them after they bought the house. They did have recourse. They can go back to the real estate commission in this state and sue the realtor for failure to
Yeah, but that's,
inform them of that.
Well,
And
we had
also
come to
for,
the town at that point, and Ryan had been telling us all along that we were gonna be able to settle this, so I haven't been taking legal action against the real estate agent, because I thought, why waste all the money and time if we can do it with the town? And that's what Brian Murphy has been telling us all along. We'll settle this with everyone happy, and that's what we've been told up until a week ago.
Yeah, and
Now
that's all
it's
we're trying
changed.
to do. I mean,
We're not
we're
trying to get
asking for
everything.
33 feet, not a half an acre plus the 33
and
feet.
I'm not
Hey,
trying
Bruce,
to be,
Bruce,
Sir.
have everything go through the board.
oh, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Um,
not talking to.
I'm not trying to be, I just would hate to lose the value of my property due to a mistake of somebody else that didn't know what they were buying, even though I made every effort to provide the information to them. I paid for this survey. I didn't have any of the butters contribute to it because I wanted to get it done, and I didn't want there to be any question as to exactly where the boundary line is. I mean, their deed is very specific as to where the boundary line is. It was marked when they bought the place. There were stakes when they bought the place.
well,
I did everything I could, and as I said, the
They walked
research,
the
the research.
property with us. The real estate agent walked the property with us the day of the closing and said, this is where you own to, and it was, she stood at the tree line, so we didn't have any reason to question it, and we weren't gonna go search out. I mean,
Okay.
so it's really hard.
why, I don't understand why you're on one side of the tree line versus the other. It appears you're on their side of the tree line when you're accessing River Road.
The tree line is actually towards the, it's on the.
Toward lot 32,
It's on the, lot 32 side,
right?
and that's where the road bed is. I mean, the road bed is between the tree line and their house. That's where the road bed is. I can't go out the other way because it's, especially in the springtime, I'd be sinking in the mud and tearing the place up. And there is no road bed on that side. It was, the trees were planted on the edge of the road bed.
The road bed he's talking about is my paved driveway. And
Your paved driveway, it comes off of River Road and it's,
Correct. If you
goes
go
right in and up to the
and
garage.
squares up to our garage like it's our, our driveway.
well, I think what we have to do is get our engineer to look at it and see what the state is willing to do. Because the other thing we're talking about, deeding, we would be willing to deed lot 32 to you. And then essentially abandon the road, which, whatever that means, he gets his driveway back and now, the other thing we could do is, I don't really think this would be a good idea, but we could deed, well, no, that's not, I was thinking of, selling you lot 32. Then you'd own either side, and if we abandon, you'd own the whole piece. If it can't be worked out
But that doesn't seem to
amicably.
solve his problem. I mean,
Yeah.
we're willing to
Yeah.
work with whatever to
Well-
get him to be able to get what he would like, and we
Yeah.
can have our
I
driveway.
mean, our objective is to put that piece of property back on the tax rolls.
And I appreciate the effort, and as I said, I'm not trying to be difficult, but I'm just going based on the information that I have received and the questions that I've asked as far as access to River Road and Route 3, in case I want to you know, I've got 7 kids. It may be that that they wanna come back, you know, I don't know what I will be doing with that, but I would hate to lose the ability to subdivide and put the road in and find out.
Yes, sir.
So,
I think we've got 2 problems here. I think we've got one problem for the 2. What do you like your last name?
Hills,
Hill?
Hills.
Hills? I believe you've got a problem with the real estate agent, number 1. That's a problem. And number 2, I think the best thing to do is to get our state engineer and get Ryan and put this on the table until a future date so that everybody can get
Yeah,
together.
find out what
and
the
get some kind
options
of a
are.
solution together. And then if there isn't a solution, then I guess they're gonna have to battle it out themselves.
I mean, we should find out what the options are. If it can be done, if you want to put a development in here and you can access Route 3,
Now, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, can I speak to you?
yeah, go right.
The land in back of Bobby Monroe's and so forth, that's pretty swampy back in there, isn't it? The field back of the meadow that's back there before you start going up under the land.
it didn't used to be until people live on lot 29, or no, I'm sorry, yeah, lot 29, filled in the swamp area that was,
Yeah, that's the one where the trailer was.
where the trailer was, and they filled that in and nobody ever did anything about it. And it forced water onto my side. As long as the drainage ditch is kept maintained, the water doesn't sit there all the time, except on the part that's down close to the ditch that's there.
Right, but it is swampy.
Down in this area, down here, down in this area.
Where
down
you'd be
here.
going into from your road.
No, the road is up here.
The road is here.
I mean, the road
goes
is
in
here.
And it's down in here.
No, it's down in here that's swamp.
Right beside Bobby Monroe's?
This is Bobby Monroe's.
Yeah, right here.
Okay, this is the swampy area.
Yeah, right back there, place.
But there's
Can you-
ways of doing this. I mean, I've got.
Is there
access-
wetlands in there?
Is there wetlands in there?
I was assuming there'd be wetlands if there's
No,
the designation
no.
of wetlands. Because if there's
I-
wetlands, you get a lot more problems than what you have now. To put a development up there.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, I've got 102 acres out here that I can,
But you've got to get from that point to
but
that.
what I'm saying is this up here is not wet. This
Oh, I
area up here is
understand
not.
that.
This area up here is
I
not wet.
understand that.
It's just, it's this area down here that's wet.
Well, is lot 32, that's not wetlands, is it?
No.
No.
Listen,
So, I mean.
No, but yeah, other lots, let's see, anywhere in around 30, 32, 29, and back there, it can get that way. So I'd want to have somebody look at that too. if he's
But
gonna
that
do
becomes an
development.
issue of subdivision when you get to
Yeah.
it. I think we should just get the state and the town engineer to take a look at this thing and come up with see if this is doable. I can't imagine why it wouldn't be, because how wide's River Road?
If I can, you know, I would have no problem with it if I can be assured that I can have access to a road there. That's fine.
Yeah, because you're looking at probably 200 feet of accessible frontage if lot 32 is deeded to you. That would be more than enough, it seems to me, to put in a road. But I don't know what the state's position is, we can find out, and then try to come to some amicable arrangement. But, so why don't we leave it at that? We'll get who's our engineer now?
Mike McNally.
Mike McNally. And talk to DOT. And we'll see if we can't reconvene, and probably gonna take more than a couple of weeks, isn't it, Paul? But whatever we do with the road, the driveway, it's got to be town meeting because of
We
the,
understand.
it hasn't been, the road hasn't been closed by gates and bars, which means you could abandon it without town meeting. But it's just an abandoned road.
Would that mean that if that happened, then we'd have no access to our home, so they couldn't do that, right? That's why it's been, because if you go there, you can see
Well, if it's
there's no other way.
abandoned, if it's abandoned, the lot line goes to the center, so you would have everything,
33.
you'd have 33 feet on that
Over.
side of the line. And, which seems the most reasonable approach to this whole thing, but particularly if we're prepared to give the half acre to Mr. Ahern, then the only thing is, can he access his 102 acres through that frontage? Which, where's your driveway now?
Right out in front of my barn. And it's,
Which is what?
it's that building right there. This is my barn.
Yeah.
Actually, there's
Where's
a
your
problem
house?
with this, my house is.
Oh, okay, you're across the street. All right.
There's
Looks
a,
like
I
the
don't,
barn's sitting in the middle of Route 3.
well, actually, this area of Route 3 is only 3 rods wide by deed. From this point here, southbound, it's only 3 rods wide.
Yeah.
Nobody ever understands that until they are shown the deeds and everything, but my barn is very close to the edge of the road. And there is, as I say, there is no sight back up here as far as the traffic that comes around, and that's why, I mean, I wrote a letter to the town back 5 years ago saying that I was gonna have to start using it because of the traffic situation, and it just was no longer safe for me to take my equipment out there, and I've been using it since then.
All right,
Yeah.
Jim,
Yeah.
you're the only one presently uses the road, right?
I don't know if anybody else drives on it. I mean, it stops there, so I mean,
Right.
there's not a there's not a place for through traffic. It's just that I use it to get out so that I can safely get out there. And yes, there are times when I drive out there and drive right back to my house, but it's because I cannot safely drive straight across. People do it, but there are accidents there all the time. I mean, you can look back through the records and see how many accidents have occurred on that corner just in the last 20 years. And,
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I'd like to ask a question of the town administrator. Is there a way that that could have been misrepresented in good faith? So how could a realtor have looked at this?
That's why we should just end discussion, we need to look into some other things.
Okay.
Check with legal counsel, check with DOT, and check with our town hall staff, Brian Murphy. These are all things that need to be done before.
This is paved here, isn't it, in front of your place?
Just in front of our house, not the whole road yet.
Yeah, okay.
the whole road used to have, I think if you dig down, I think there is crumbled pavement there, I think.
But there's a new driveway that was put in
Yeah,
right
no, I
in front of
understand.
our two-car garage and back to River Road. That's the only part that's paved, is driving into our driveway and then in front of our garage.
Why don't we try to get a resolution from the state and our engineer, and then what would be the meeting, where's it from? Would be the next meeting, but it'd be one after that.
Mr. Chairman, that still might not be
Not enough?
feasible at this time of the year. We'll have to contact them when we have
Got away
it.
with snow melts, where are we here?
We'll contact them when we have the dates.
That's it. March.
Just looking at it. What is it today, 23rd?
23rd.
So you wouldn't be able to do it on the 13th of April?
No.
Not likely. Okay. Well, you can still access your house.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So, and we can't resolve this thing legally
No,
until
we didn't
town
discuss.
meeting, but we can get some options on the table that we can sit down and discuss again and try to come to some reasonable solution. Fair enough.
I guess there's one more little question, if you don't mind. If this was settled and we did get some kind of proof from the state or whoever that you can get a road in there to get access to River Road or a safer edge of Route 3, can we guarantee that they can't come in front of our house, you know, like, that we wouldn't want to have to say, yes, that, okay, now this is settled, and then still be coming in front of our home, and then have,
Well, it seems
hopefully
to
we
me
would
that
get something.
the resolution would be to abandon the road,
Okay,
and that would give you the 33 feet in front of your house.
okay. And that's all we were promised when we bought the house,
And that
and
would
that's all
be,
we're
that
asking
actually
for.
would be deeded.
Right. Okay.
And then the question is, can Mr. Ahern get in and out through either the other side of the 33 feet or part of that half acre that we would deed? So let's go with that, and we'll reconvene in a month or so when we get an answer. That's satisfactory? Okay.
We're trying. Just,
Oh, we appreciate it.
my schedules are set about a month and a half in advance at times, so I have to have some notices to exactly what the meeting is, and
We'll have
my-
plenty of notice, I'm sure.
My schedule's not real adjustable once it gets set, so.
No, we'll give you plenty of notice. We can set it up so that it works on your schedule. Because we've got until town meeting to really get this thing legally signed.
Which is March
Next March,
2010. Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
All right. Under correspondence, the board has received a notice from Fred Gould withdrawing his request for reappointment to the planning board. So that is one of the appointments we're going to make tonight, which we might as well start with right now. Do we need a vote on this?
The individual.
The individual appointments, okay. The appointment of Dick Lewis to the zoning board,
That's a reappointment.
a reappointment. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to reappoint Dick Lewis to the zoning board.
Second.
Second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So Lewis is appointed. Dick Piper requested reappointment to the zoning board. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Those in favor?
Aye.
Howard Burnham requested an appointment as an alternate to the zoning board to fill a vacancy in seat 5A with a 2011 term expiration. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Chairman,
Yes.
because I am married to the next appointee.
So you're married to the guy you want to recuse yourself? Okay.
Yes, please.
Jack Scarborough, the planner recommended to move from an alternate to full seat position on the planning board. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Point of order,
Yes, sir.
is that contrary to the selectmen rules that somebody that's married or a relative would have undue influence on that board?
No.
No,
Miriam checked with the state.
We checked with the state. That's not true.
it's not true.
No.
What's the law?
I don't know. The law said that we can do it. We checked it probably a month and a half ago when Fred Gould brought it up.
Huh?
Fred Gould brought the same issue up, but that was resolved. So do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Second? We have moved and seconded. The chair seconded. Those in favor?
Discussion.
Discussion?
We have discussion on this. I just believe it's, these boards are two of the most powerful boards in the town, and I feel that there might be due conflict. So I would have to vote no.
John?
I feel the same as Butch does because, number one, they are the most powerful boards, and they can formulate the future of Plymouth a lot, and it's just that I think that there could be undue influence with two people on such powerful boards.
So you're not in favor?
No.
I think those are valid concerns, but in a town so small, such a small pool of candidates, I would have to trust the, the integrity of the members, but valid concerns, definitely.
So we have 2 against. You're not in favor?
I am in favor, but with respect to the points.
Well, I don't see it as that serious an issue. And therefore inclined to vote yes. I don't know what that means.
Means it fails.
It fails, right?
Yes, okay. So the appointment of Jack Scarborough as from alternate to full seat is denied. Rhonda Bishop, planner recommends to move from alternate to fully seated position in the planning board. In favor?
Make a motion for Rhonda Bishop planning to fully seat position on the planning board.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? No? Those in favor?
Aye.
Rhonda Bishop is appointed as full seat. So we have the issue of Jack Scarborough's. We still need a,
We don't need to, I think we've got a full seat of regular people, young people. We had 2 drop out.
Fred and,
Yeah, but we've got, I believe we've got
so you feel the board can run with what it's got?
without any problem.
All right. Land use permits. Do we have any land use permits? Other than our discussion with Mr. Ahern? No, there are no land use permits.
And so those
Sign of the economy.
Chairman's comments. We had some discussion after the town meeting that there were a number of people felt that the board tried to sneak something through with the sense of the meeting motion. I think it was after Article 14. I think it's appropriate we set the record straight. The reason that we wanted a sense of the meeting is to find out what sort of positions people were going to take on the constructing a firehouse for about $2.5 million. As it worked out, I think it was not a real good idea to bring that up because it just turned into a broad discussion that went nowhere and went on forever. But it wasn't it certainly wasn't a sneaky position. The DRA said that we could not have an article that asked if the town would like to build a firehouse for $2.5 million, essentially to ask a sense of the meeting in a warrant article. And that's why we didn't do it that way. If anyone feels we were out of line, so be it. As I say, it was, the DRA prohibited us from putting it in as a warrant article, so we didn't. I don't think as a sense of the meeting, it went very far other than a long protracted discussion that really didn't come to any point. So we apologize for the inconvenience and we'll never do it again. At least we'll try not to do it again. Are there any comments?
Can I have a
Yeah.
comment? Maybe Paul could help me. Since we didn't get a sense of the meeting, do we continue to go on with exploring the public safety bill?
Board's discretion.
Is it up to the board's discretion?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I just feel that we're caught in a trap. You know, it's a no-win situation. We try to get people to say, well, that we want to go with a new building. First, they tell us, the buildings are falling down, we've got to do something about it. Then we said, well, we'll put $50,000 in the repairs of the building for a period of time. Well, they didn't like that. Then we wanted to put a new reasonable building up and do away with the older plans. And as you said, they come to a no-end conversation on that.
Yeah.
So we don't really know what we should do. We know that the building is falling down, we know the police station does have problems to it, but we haven't even had a go-ahead as far as a set of plans, a conceptual set of plans as far as a type of building.
Yeah.
So and I know it's still going to be a no-win situation, because if we don't do anything, there are certain people in down in Plymouth that will get up next town meeting and say, well, you haven't done anything about it, so where do we go from there? They're saying, we don't want you to build, and you can't get any plans. And I guess it goes right back to, there are certain people in Plymouth that want the old building plans and will not give one way or the other.
We're going around in circles.
So,
We had a $100,000
yeah.
plan with no place to put the
Right.
building, and
Right.
that's been thrown in our face for a couple of years. The last, at the town meeting, the thing that kept sticking in my craw was, we want choices. Well, the choices are limited, and I think what this board will do, will begin to do very soon, is to form a committee that'll be made up of the chiefs and a number of other people that we'll have to deal with, we'll have to decide on. And we will come up with a plan and a budget and a site and all the stuff, and go to town meeting and say, here it is. There's not going to be a choice. And I think we may be looking at a phased-in program anyway. Admittedly, the firehouse on Highland Street is dilapidated and is probably going to have to be replaced, but it's a little difficult to replace something when what are you going to do with the fire trucks while you tear the thing down, you know? So I think it's appropriate for us to look at a site and a plan and develop a budget for a turnkey operation that would give us a new firehouse, a central firehouse. And then phase 2 would be to go to the town with replacing the Highland Street firehouse, because it's in the middle of the campus, and for a lot of reasons, they may want to see the light replacing it. And you know, see what kind of participation we can get from the university. And then the police department might be phase 3, I don't know. But I think the choices are going to be limited. There's going to be one lot, one building, one price, and a time frame, and it'll be voted up or down at the meeting. If it's voted down, then I don't know where we go, you know.
Kent,
Yeah.
Quonset hut.
Yeah, we'll put a Quonset hut up over the old one, a big ugly Quonset hut with a red light over the door, and that'll be it. So I think, I agree. I think that's about as much discussion on this as we want to have tonight, but we will begin the process of developing the plan for a firehouse, which everybody, we know we need it, the town knows we need it, and the choices are going to be limited. Okay, approved purchase orders. We have one purchase order for 12,000, where is that? 2,000? $2,917.98 for repair of a 2003 Ford one-ton plow truck for the highway department. That's been approved. That's it.
We're replacing the truck.
We just passed it around, it's in the folder.
Repair, just repair, not replace.
Repair to a 2003.
We gotta make a motion.
I make a motion that we pay the purchase order for an amount of $2,917.98 to do repairs on 2003 Ford 110 plow truck.
Second.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
The repairs shall be made. Committee reports. I don't know, does anybody have committee reports? I'm sort of in a fog after the election town meeting.
Well, we had
So
one,
far, only
the
one on my mind.
planning board had one, but it really was, basically, it was two of the members, Bill Gould and Fred Gould, resigned, and then there was quite a discussion in approval of a subdivision on New Human Road and Texas Hill Road. And if anybody wants to know where it is, it's at the intersection of those two roads, and they were quite concerned about some of the water and stuff like that. But it did go through, it was approved.
Any other, do you have any?
I had a Chamber of Commerce meeting. They're beginning to talk with Main Street about some kind of partnership or merger. And as well, there was a representative talking about sort of a buyer beware, targeted to the businesses in Plymouth and surrounding to be aware of companies that are advertising, putting their advertisements in their publications in hopes of distributing them to the students. There was a company going around saying that they would put your advertisement in this calendar that would be given to students, but PSE was never apprised of that, so these stacks of calendars are sort of sitting in PSU's doorstep, and they don't distribute that way, so just a buyer beware to the Plymouth businesses that was coming from the Chamber of Commerce.
Valerie wasn't at any, so I missed the Water District meeting 2 weeks ago. Tomorrow I'll be at the regular meeting to discuss a few issues that we have. I was at the Rotary Club. They are moving ahead with with a cover for the stairs. We've arranged to have they've got the labor donated, and I think a lot of the materials for this thing. The roof is going to be put on by Randy Cleary. He's provided the labor for that. We've got some issues to deal with that may not be as cute as we thought, namely getting a water source so that they can water the lawn without bringing the tanker truck. But Tom Morrison told me today that there is a hydrant someplace between the courthouse and that amphitheater that we can probably tap into. What we want to do is ask the water board if they will participate in the cost of maintaining this to the extent that they don't meter that hydrant.
I just, Mr. Chairman, I just hope that they use a smaller hose than a fire hose to do that, or you'll have that amphitheater somewhere between Plymouth and
No,
Ashland.
it could be I guess it's 1.5 inches. They put a nozzle on a new nozzle on the front of the hydrant, and it's 1.5 inches.
That's how we wanted it all
Yeah.
last year.
So the fire department won't have to get down with a tanker every time we want to water the lawn, which that's going to become an issue come summertime, because that was all sod. It'll dry out and blow away on us unless we get a flood. That won't happen either. All right, other business. Can I pass over the select board goals for the time, just until, I'll put that at the end, discussion of the stimulus package. The town of Plymouth, in the Union Leader yesterday, there was an article on the proposals for federal stimulus package that have made the first cut. They've made the cut in New Hampshire, and the one project in Plymouth that has made the cut, whatever that means, is a $6.1 million water and sewer district wastewater treatment facility improvement. And this is for a 50% forgivable loan. So the water district should be commended for getting in line and getting their plans and ducks in a row so that at least they've made it to this point. And we should be, if it continues to move in this direction, we should probably end up with a $3 million forgivable loan. And I guess they're going after grants for some significant portion. So that's a project. I don't know how long it's going to take. Do you have any idea how long this will take? Did you have anything in there that you're, nothing?
No, I left that to what? As far as the stimulus package?
Yeah.
I just want to remind you, that made it through the first cut. And the new fire station and the library expansion also made it through the first cut.
Okay, they weren't in this.
We have had correspondence that I've sent to all of you about, at this time, we are unable to match the rest of your goals regarding the ARRA. They're planning on looking at other entities within the state that might pick up some of the other things that we submitted.
Now, the first cut, the fire station, how does that work? It's not shovel-ready or won't be within?
We put in, not the new fire, we put in for a new fire station, we also
Yeah.
put in repairs of that fire station
Oh,
and
okay.
repairs of the PD. They're still on the table.
Are they on the North Country Council list? Is that where they sent it?
They're also on the North Country, the fire station, a new fire station, and the library expansion are on North Country's list.
Yeah, the library expansion is pretty well along. They probably qualify for the shovel-ready type of thing. But it looks like it's a forgivable loan program. The other thing I wanted to talk about, I want to bring this up while Mike Heath is here. This skim coat that they're going to put on Main Street this year, the 1 inch. I'd like to find out if we can go to the state, in view of the fact that we haven't gotten much of the stimulus money for anything else, and see if we can't get them to do the job right, and that is grind up Main Street and compress it and do including if we can impress upon the state that we have it coming to do it all the way to the curbs. I don't know, who would you deal with there? Would that be you or?
You could deal with the state engineers in Guilford. I may suggest that we're going to have them up here to look at the situation on Route 3 and Bridgewater Road, that maybe we could investigate that problem at the same time. It'll be coming out of the same department.
Yeah, because they did that right up to the courthouse.
Yes.
Right, they reclaimed the road and, okay, so what we'd really like to do is impress upon the state that it doesn't make any sense to put a 1 year, because that's not going to last more than a couple of years if we're lucky.
Yeah, you may get 2 years out of it.
Yeah. I mean, they can patch the potholes for a lot less and then give us a decent job when they come around to it. But if the state announced that they're going to go from, the stimulus money will allow them to go from 250 miles of road resurfacing to 760 miles. So that's a significant amount of money. Probably runs into the hundreds of millions. And I think Route 3, Main Street, Plymouth should be reclaimed and done properly. When was the last time that road was done?
I mean, the skim coat or just done?
No, I mean, properly done. Probably before John was born.
I've been here 30 years.
Sewage and curbing in, sidewalks in, what was that, 15 years ago? Maybe it wasn't even that long ago. Maybe it was 15 years ago.
Yeah, because that's pretty beat up.
Right, but I don't think we reclaimed the whole Main Street.
I don't think.
I think they just.
One of the suggestions
Just to the edge.
that was brought up
Yep.
was that we grind up, when we grind up the road, we take out those crosswalks made out of brick, grind them up as well, and then just paint crosswalks on the Main Street.
I wouldn't argue that for a minute, but there's a process developed now for putting crosswalks in where they imprint them. And it looks like a raised surface, but it's an imprint, and they last for years.
Yeah. You mean It's sort of like,
Like a rubberized,
It's a rubberized product,
yeah.
what do you mean they imprint, like the lines?
yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, you can see some down at the traffic circle if you look.
Yeah. But, yeah, I'd like to look into that. When did the state plan to do this surface coat?
Not before the middle of the summer.
I mean, what, July or August? late
July,
summer?
probably. They're not going to do anything before June because of the motorcycle weekend and the NASCAR races, and probably will be shortly after that.
So what we want to do is get some stimulus money thrown into this project and see if we can't do it right. All right. Paul, are you the one that's going to deal with DOT or Mike or both of you? Okay. So can you bring us some sort of indication of where they stand next meeting?
Yes.
Okay. So that takes care of the stimulus package overlay of Route 3. Review of the select board goals. Well, you want to do the contract? Well, all right, let's review the union contract review now. And then,
What we'll be doing inside the package,
yeah.
just for you to take home and read over the next 2 weeks. You have a copy of the original agreement. You have a copy of the tentative agreement that you signed. Then you have a copy of the new agreement with the tentative agreement inserted in it. So you need to compare the new copy to the old copy. I would tell you that on the parts of the old copy that didn't get changed, we duplicated them exactly. If there was a apostrophe S missing in the old contract, apostrophe S is still missing in the new contract. That way there won't be any controversy with the union members saying that we changed anything else with the new contract. All we did is insert the new agreement that we had.
And what's the when do we want to have this signed?
Giving you 2 weeks to look. I can tell you that the staff looked for typos, but you should also read the whole contract and compare the two, make sure that one doesn't say anything different than the other, except for the 8 changes that, the 8 or 9 changes that you signed.
Anything, so?
The tentative agreement, where does that fit?
You know, like if we made changes in 8.1 and 8.2, in the new agreement, those changes would be at 8.1 and 8.2.
So we'll go over it, back to you, and then,
It's right between the old contract and the new contract. Yes, this is. And all we do is take that and insert it into the new contract. And that's all the other old language that didn't change as is. And we did that for the purpose of having an electronic copy now.
Thank you.
So we don't have to go through this in the future.
all right. Select board goals. Our major goal this year is to get the firehouse under control. We would form a committee that would come back with site recommendations, plans. We'd have to, we're gonna pick a site as opposed to spending $40,000 for each site and then giving options. I don't even know where the other sites would be.
I believe that most of the sites that would have been available have been, checked
One of
out
them's not
and
available.
made sure that there was a problem with each site that we did, and we spent a lot of money trying to do it, and they've either been changed to another use or they've been eliminated. So I'm not too sure how many other sites you might find, you know, in the town.
I think that's the first step in the process of trying to develop a plan. Once we've agreed on a site, then I think we just we'll go to a design and budget, put the whole thing together, and then have public hearings to get a warrant article that we can take to town meeting. Other than that, the other thing that's coming up, June '09, we start the process of negotiating the LSSA with the university. And we're going to have to pick who will participate in that and start the process. And that we should probably have that resolved in the next 30 days, at least who the players are going to be, and begin the process of what we're going to ask for and how we want to get it. There's some ideas. I've got some ideas on how to approach the university for this, and you may or may not agree on, but we'll take everything under consideration and move forward. Other than that, I don't think it's, some of the goals that we might want to get into are a little premature, so I think those two are going to fill our plate for the next 6 months anyway. Public comment. Anyone have anything to say? John?
I have 4 things on my agenda, and I hope I'm not cut off or thrown out. First of all,
You're too heavy to get thrown out.
First of all, I'd like to publicly commend Mr. Gould and Mr. Hull for all the public service they've done for this town and the money they've saved, and I hope that they are going to receive plaques or something else honoring them for the work they have done. They did a great job. The next thing, I just listened to people arguing about their land and everything else. That's a civil matter, and I hope the town does not spend any money on our engineers or our workers trying to settle that agreement. They should pay for whatever they have to do to settle it, as far as going to the state or anything else, and if we're gonna deed land to people, I hope we get paid for it. The firehouse, I think, or what happened at the town meeting, I think we're at the end of the horse instead of at the start of the horse. I think what the board should do through the town planner or something, get a form letter and say, you as a citizen in the town of Plymouth would please advise us how to proceed. Would you like A, B, C, D, or none of the above? When they send it back in, that gives you a clear message of what percentage of the taxpayers want either a firehouse, a police station, or whatever, and that way you can go to a meeting and say, look, we've got 60% of the people that want a new firehouse, because that meeting was not a good representation of all the taxpayers in Plymouth. The way the economy is, if you try to ram something down people's throats, they're not going to go for it. They don't have the money. So let's get an idea of what they want and then work from there. Very simple. The other thing is, what the hell is the other thing? One thing I noticed at the firehouse, or the police station, we are a small town. I went up to the firehouse to talk to the chief one day, and when I walked in there, it is a bad situation, there's no doubt about it. And then I happened to look over, and there was about 30 to 40 uniforms hanging on the wall. I said, it's a wonder that wall's still standing. There's so much weight on it. Now, I know they don't have any place to put the uniforms and everything else, but how much do we have to pay for it? It seems to me like 20 uniforms would be enough. Should we consider downsizing our departments and giving them good facilities, or keeping a big number of employees in a small facility. Can't do that. So I think sooner or later, the selectmen have to decide about fire and police, what size do we want? Do we want the size that's economy and still will do the job with a good facility? You understand what I'm saying? I mean, the other thing was, and you people may not like this, but on the committees, way back when the selectmen committees were set up, way back when John was here and I was here, the whole process of selectmen on committees was to go to the road agent or the police station or the fire station, and it was rotated. So the selectmen could have an idea of what every department was doing in every committee. Now I see, and no offense, you're doing a good job, but John's been on the planning board for, what, 3 years now, John? That should go to somebody else so they can learn what's going on with the planning board. I mean, Charlie's been with the water and sewer, what, 3 years, Charlie, 2?
1,
Last year.
yeah.
But I'm with an agreement that it should be 2 years or whatever, it should be rotated so all the selectmen are learning all the different departments that we've got and all the different committees we've got. It would only be helpful to the members of the board. That's it.
Well, I agree, John. We're planning to meet, there was a discussion about committee representations to the departments. We're still not there because we have some of the department managers flat out don't want it, and others are pretty enthusiastic about it. And I think we're probably going to get that squared away within the next 3 or 4 weeks, which departments we're going to have. Basically, a selectman should be an advocate for each of these departments and periodically meet with the head of the department and just find out what's going on and see if you make it a little easier for everybody to communicate. But with the fire department, we're going to be meeting with the chief on some issues pretty soon. And, there's just some issues that we want to get resolved. And he will also be one of the people on this committee that we select to, obviously, to build the fire department. If we're going to get this thing done, and I think we probably will get it done within the next year, by next town meeting, we'll have something on the table that's budgeted and ready to go, and you'll have pretty pictures and where it's going to be and everything else. We've got to get over some of the concerns about the locations, but that's going to start pretty soon. Anybody else? Yeah, right?
May I approach, Mr. Chairman? I have some
Yes, you
information
may.
I can send there.
The Town Energy Committee held our first meeting last week on Tuesday night, and we felt that we wanted to make sure we established and sustained a regular input to the select board with the things that we're speaking to and identifying for opportunities to improve energy efficiency measures within the town. This is the draft copy of the minutes of that first meeting. I'll point out 2 key points. I'm not going to read this to you. The first item is number 4, to let everyone know that we have identified the 3rd Tuesday of each month at 6 p.m. for our meetings. We would anticipate that it wouldn't be necessary for us to give you an input on every month of what we're doing, but at a minimum, the intent is for the chair or vice chair to meet with you and provide you with insights on what we're about on a bi-monthly basis at a minimum. If you start at item number 6, you'll see that we spoke to a number of initial strategies that we wanted to work towards during the course of the 2009-2010 business year for us. We took the first step with the planning board to essentially plant a seed that we'd like to engage them in a dialogue to look for opportunities within the site plan regulations to see if there are things that should appropriately be done with them to facilitate energy efficiency, design, and construction in future activities within the town. I did plant that seed on their March 19th meeting, and the next task is to actually spend some time with the town planner to, if you will, front-end load that discussion so that we're not spending time with the planning board without the full insights from the town planner on things that would just make sense for us to explore. The intent here is for us to have any outcomes that may come out of this exercise available either prior to or during town meeting for any appropriate action. We also have a subcommittee that's being led by Steve Cow that's going to take a look at opportunities that we believe a number of towns have already acted on. It's something that we've looked into in the past year here in Plymouth. And while we're finding that from a tax assessment standpoint, current deployments of measures like solar panels, and there's currently 20 in the past couple of years that have been put in place here in Plymouth. And with the focus that we're seeing going forward with the initiatives like Perry and others, we expect that number to grow substantially in the next couple of years. It is going to become a valuable asset in the value of the home or the small business in the future, and it's very likely to start being assessed at a value that's not showing up now. We'd like to look at all those opportunities around there to perhaps provide tax breaks, but we also think there may be a tie-in to that first item we spoke to with the planning board. There could be some type of incentive program that facilitates and encourages things to be done by the builder developer and carry over to the homeowner. We're just not sure what that looks like, but we'd like to explore that. The other thing is a subcommittee that's being led by Larry. You heard it mentioned by someone, and I can't recall who at town meeting, that it might be a favorable idea to have volunteers to help with some of the labor efforts, and I think it was directed toward the library at that time. We believe there's other activities that professionals would be willing to provide some in-kind support for. And Larry's going to pull that together in terms of what opportunities there may be and what the professional support might look like, along with all the other things like permits, insurance issues, and bring that back initially at our April meeting. Lastly, we're going to have representatives from New Hampshire Electric Co-op come to our next meeting to explore two things. Number one, the energy audits that are needed to assist in trying to fill some of the voids in the information we've got in the ongoing greenhouse gas inventory. You heard Martha speak to the efforts that have been completed with the Grafton County complex. I'm fortunate to be one of those 10 individuals that's working on that group. And the opportunities that are identified for low-hanging fruit to start saving money are just so good when you do a comprehensive energy audit of the facilities, not just the electrical energy, and there's been a number of town facilities that have been audited from an electrical standpoint, but do a comprehensive review. So we're going to look at that and look to see if there's a way to also get grants. In the same fashion, we were able to secure a grant that enabled the committee to start the greenhouse gas inventory work. We also wanted to give you an initial report that's attached. I'll leave it here for your, I won't say nightstand reading pleasure, for your subsequent reading, with the understanding that we'd be happy to come back, in particular the individual, Belinda Walsh, who's just done an excellent job of stepping in and picking up the work that was done initially with the grad student we had out of PSU who was helping us to populate the database of information. With that, willing to answer any questions or come back at your pleasure.
Belinda Walsh is, who's that?
She's one of our town residents that's been very active in the Energy Committee activities. Steve Whitman is still very much involved, and we think Steve is, because of not only his current profession, but because of his past experience as a Plymouth town planner, is an individual who would make a great contributor, if you will, or leader even, in this dialogue with the planning board, to see what might make sense. A lot of information I'm throwing at you.
So you're gonna meet the third Tuesday of every month?
Yes, sir.
Where's the meeting gonna be?
We've been holding them here in the, I'm not sure, what do we call that room across the hall?
The gold room.
Thank you.
It's not gold, but we call it that. I have no idea.
You told me that the other day, and I still can't verify my
Gold
salute.
chairs? Oh, okay.
The chairs are gold and cushy.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to volunteer to be a selectman representative on that committee.
I think that's a good idea. We could,
Boy, that would be appreciated to have a selectman rep. That would help with the communications back and forth on a consistent basis, too.
well, given that you volunteered, I'd like to nominate you as the selectman's rep for the committee. Make a motion.
So I'm trying to talk to you.
You don't need to
Volunteering.
That's right.
You got-
You don't need to
You don't
vote.
need a motion, you're appointed.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you have somebody in the audience.
I ask you,
Yeah, John.
Ray, do you know of any work at all in trying to clean up coal? Because that is, we get more coal and we know what to do with. Is there any effort to clean it up where it can be useful to us?
I have a son in California that works for the Sierra Club who's probably turned blue because he heard you ask that question 3,000 miles away. There is potential technology applications that are expensive and still several years away from full deployment. And the question is arising, is the trip worth the fare to even go there? That jury is out for quite some time.
Would you say that jury is still out on all the other forms of energy too? Because we don't really know yet.
I think it's going to be a tough nut for, not only for our state, but for this nation to figure out what makes sense for energy independence, what makes sense from the standpoint of cost, for dependable electricity when you want to turn the switch on. I could go on for 2 or 3 hours on this subject.
Thank you.
It's tough.
Well, you got a rep.
Thank you.
He's pretty good.
We'll try not to work him too hard.
No.
As you can see from Mr. Whitman not being present, what happens when you're not present, though.
Right. All sorts of things get done.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? All right, we're going to go into non-public.
Have to adjourn,
Pardon?
have to adjourn the first meeting.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
could I just make a suggestion, and I might be out of line at this point, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think probably it would be a good idea where we have 3 new selectmen that are reasonably new in the town of Plymouth, to have some time set aside so that we could all, not all get together, but at least have one person that might have been here for a few years, take the others around, because I'm not too sure whether that it was sort of brought to light with it to me tonight. I'm not too sure if we all know where the Aherns live, or the Hills live. I'm not too sure whether we all know where the recycling center is. I don't know whether we all know where Kelly's junkyard is. I just think that a lot of times we're shaking our head yes and discussing something that we know very, very little about. I just think it should be an orientation type of thing, that we should drive around Plymouth and try to find out where other sections of town is other than Main Street, you know. And I just think it would be a big help as far as trying to have a reasonable discussion.
Yeah, we could. Who would do the, you'd be the tour guide.
Paul generally does it. He gave me an initiation last year where he drove it all around.
But I think either Paul or somebody.
I'll put something together.
Okay, so that we know what we're talking about, because I'm sure we don't know whether, some of the people don't know where 800 lives.
I don't know where John Kelly lives, that's a good thing.
Yeah, a lot of people do. Fortunately or unfortunately.
Now you can adjourn to go into non-public in the RSA 91-A:3, 2A, C, and D.
And real estate. All right.
Can I make the motion?
Those in favor individually?
Yeah, go ahead, John. Okay.
Josh?
You had to wait a long time for that, didn't you?
Yes.
I would suggest, John, that every new employee that comes to the town should have that tour.
Grab a couple. Grab a couple, John. You might know somebody else.
I've only got one.
Make a motion.
You might know some.